Welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset space. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Joining me are my co-hosts, Coindesk Managing Editor of Global Capital Markets, Lawrence Luton, and Managing Director of International Content, Emily Parker. Good morning, Emily and Lawrence. A bit of a bloody Tuesday.
It depends on your perspective. For some people, this is BTFD.
That's true. Let's check in on Bitcoin. The Coindesk Bitcoin price XBX index currently trading at $60,622. Bitcoin is sliding down over 7% over the past 24 hours. And the Coindesk Ether price ETX index is at $4,284, down over 9%. The new DFX Coindesk DeFi index is taking a bit of a hit, down over 11% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the Coindesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data. So, Lawrence, a bit of a fire sale out there.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you think Bitcoin's going to 100,000 by year end, as we've had some guests say, great time to buy. If you think that, oh my God, this is the end of the world because China decided that they're going to ban mining again for like the 85th time. This is, get out while it's hot. Look, it's year end. We don't know exactly where the buyers and sellers are going to come from. I mean, we have some suspicions, but here we are. Look, this is as you're saying, and it is a bit of a fire sale for a lot of people who are going to be long. So the question is whether or not these prices will remain low over the next few weeks. Remains to be seen.
Well, Emily, I did see some did China ban Bitcoin again? Chitter chatter on Twitter. What do we know about? Is this happening again?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more China could ban Bitcoin mining than it already has. I mean, mining has basically shifted to North America. This happened a while ago. So, I mean, who knows, right? A lot of the market is driven by sentiment. So maybe there are some people out there who are just like, okay, another China ban. But I think anybody who's been following this, even peripherally, would know that this isn't really news. So I'm a little bit skeptical about this being the main factor behind the price drop, unless somebody really has not been reading any cryptocurrency information for like the last year. So.
Well,
it's a good excuse. It's a good excuse if you ever want to put a government official in jail. You can just blame them for crypto mining in their district. So it's a great way to squash potential dissent. Is use this as another excuse.
I did see Bitcoin going below $60,000 during afternoon trade in Asia, and yes, we do have news of a Chinese official being put away because of he allowed crypto mining in China. So we'll see. Barbados will become the first sovereign nation to establish an embassy in the Metaverse. The Caribbean island nation is working with multiple Metaverse companies to legally establish embassies, consulates, and provide services such as e-visas. So certainly another country that is more accepting of crypto. Joining us now is Gabriel Abed, Ambassador of Barbados to the UAE. Hello there, Gabriel. So my question is, why is Barbados doing this? What problem does it solve that can't be done with physical embassies?
Good morning, everyone, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. As we currently look at it, Barbados, like many other small island developing states, is a relatively small nation. And we have less than 20 diplomatic missions around the world. And when we think about global diplomacy, we're speaking about 190 plus potential relationships that need to be maintained. So when we think about the advent of such technology, we can start looking towards a lower cost, much more efficient infrastructure that really plays to the modern age to allow us to embark on these types of initiatives to really position Barbados ahead of creating new allies, establishing new relationships, and offering services around the world. Now, more importantly, if we start looking at the Barbados context and the Barbados citizen, we have a lot of talented individuals. We have a lot of creators of art, music, dance. Our culture is very rich. And this is a way for us to capture this creative content display it in a way and start offering a new type of cultural diplomacy while merging that with technological diplomacy. I would also like to touch on a very key important point, and that's one where our Prime Minister is on the front line of the climate change topic at COP26. She gave a very compelling speech about the risks that the lives and livelihoods of Barbadians, like many others on the coastal front, face from climate change. And when we think about global travel, this is a way of curbing that climate costs by allowing us to start utilizing technology.
Gabriel, welcome. This is a really interesting initiative. But, remember, a lot of people don't even really understand what the metaverse is. This is a relatively new concept to a lot of people. So, everything that you're saying philosophically makes sense. But I was wondering if you could break down for our viewers, like, how exactly does this work? What does it mean to have an embassy in the metaverse? What services does it offer? How do people use it? I think that might be useful for people to understand exactly what this initiative is.
Sure, and that's reflective of what we're currently seeing. A lot of people don't understand what this can mean, and this is almost like saying we're going to launch a website in the 1990s to start offering information about our government or about our country. And what this really boils down to is providing much more of an immersive experience around our national agenda and around our diplomatic arrangements. So what this really means is the ability for the next generation of digital nomads and users to really enter a different type of environment virtually, walk into a virtual embassy and apply for various digital services. So in essence, this is just taking what we already have in the digital space and enhancing that. And what it also does is it allows us to create an environment that lets us turn to other nations around the world and begin working with them to start setting up and pioneering these new types of activities for the benefit of all of our citizens.
So just if I understand correctly, is the idea that, so part of what you're doing is digitizing or sort of making the embassy and visa process a little bit more efficient, right? Is it correct to say that? But like adding an immersive element to it?
That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is that this is a way of embarking on cultural diplomacy in the way that we can start trading how we interact with other nations. For example, let's just call it Poland or Russia. We can go to them and offer them a digital embassy experience, and vice versa. They can do that, where we trade our arts and crafts virtually and establish an environment that doesn't really require a physical presence.
So just one other question. I know that this has been one of the headlines of this has been like, you are the first to have like digital sovereign land. Can you explain, sort of what that is, or sovereign digital land? And also like, what is the crypto component here? Like, where does this fit into sort of the crypto world?
Well, we're actually not the first. Back in 2007, I believe it was the Maldives and the Philippines that actually established a metaverse embassy in Second Life. What the difference between that and this is that this is now occurring in an environment that is decentralized, where the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Barbados government can actually hold the cryptographic keys to the underlying asset that is the digital land, and thus taking control of that particular parcel of property. Now, that is fundamentally different than what we had seen in the past under the Diplo Foundation.
Ambassador Abbott, thank you very much for coming today. Of course, you're the ambassador to the United Arab Emirates. What role did the UAE? What role did the UAE play in? Have we lost them?
Have we lost them? Okay, we've lost the ambassador, unfortunately, but I know. I wanted you to ask your question, Lawrence, about, where are you going to park your digital car?
And I was going to ask about them becoming a republic at the end of this is a very important time for Barbados. They're going to become a republic at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So,
A fascinating concept, ambitious project. All right. Well, that was Gabriel Abbott, Ambassador of Barbados to the UAE. Coming up, we'll check in on Asia and a crypto markets update with crypto options analytics platform Genesis Volatility. All right, we're back with the Ambassador of Barbados to the UAE. Welcome back, Gabriel. So, Lawrence, I believe you had a question for Gabe.
Yes, Ambassador. Hi. Hello, Ambassador Abbott. Thank you again for coming on.
Died. The beauty of technology.
It happens. This is, 21st century isn't as neat and clean as we thought it would be, but here we are. My question is, of course, because you're the ambassador to the United Arab Emirates from Barbados. So I'm wondering what role the UAE had in this creation, and are they investing any money for some of the digital aspects, digital economy of Barbados, including this project?
The UAE had no role in this. The goal for us is to obviously try to get as many nations as possible to begin working with us in this new way, because I think it's pretty important to note that this is a new type of technology, and we have to begin trying new things. And for us, when we start embarking on this road, we're seeing a very long and beautiful journey ahead of what this can represent and what this can do, especially as it relates to the new types of digital businesses that we are seeing in the industry. And the idea is that we would like multiple nations to work with us as we start embarking on these various types of initiatives. But no, the UAE didn't have a role in this particular instance.
And of course, Barbados is becoming a republic at the end of the month. I mentioned right before the break. Does that play a role in any of this in terms of how your outlook now? In other words, your outlook and the more, let's say, I don't want to say aggressive foreign policy, because obviously it's not aggressive, but more of a proactive foreign policy rather, in terms of trying to get foreign investment, et cetera, into the country, or is it just sort of this is just a symbolic move that will have no effect on foreign policy?
As it relates to us becoming a republic, I believe that is the desire of the nation and the Prime Minister for us to move towards being a sovereign nation that defines and dictates its own destiny and future, which is relatively important to majority of Barbadians. As it relates to this Metaverse embassy, the two are not mutually exclusive in any way.
Right. And Gabriel, just finally, how do I get to this metaverse? I mean, for folks who are not so savvy or inclined with the technology and have laptops die on them, but how do I get onto this metaverse?
Okay, so the beautiful part is that most of these metaverses are accessible via your smartphone, your PC, your computer, but more specifically using a 3D headset. So once you have any of those particular devices, you can navigate to where our various plot of land will be, which will be announced in the coming months. I should also note that more details are coming in an FAQ because many Barbadians and users on the internet have so many questions. What is the metaverse? What does this mean for me? What does this mean for my nation? What does this mean for the future of citizenry? And I'd like to note that I'm so impressed by our civic output and the content that we're engaging in at this moment. So it's very important that we put out some education, some transparency, and some information around it. And part of that would be, how do you access this new type of environment? How do you go about exploring, walking into our virtual embassy? How do you go visit the art gallery within it? How do you go see the works of arts by other Barbadians? How do you access some of the some of the e-consulate services that become available as they become available? And then, of course, how do you see our various global partners as they interact with this
Gabriel,
new
if
environment?
the aim here is to put Barbados on the map, you certainly have folks talking. We got to end it there, though. But thank you for joining us, Gabriel Abed, Ambassador of Barbados to the UAE. All right, time now for the daily forecast, an update on what's happening in the Asia crypto markets. Here's Angie Lau of Forecast News.
Welcome to the Daily Forecast, November 16th, 2021. I'm Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief of Forecast News, covering all things blockchain. Well, Circle, issuer of the second largest stablecoin by market cap, the USD coin, is going to invest in a Japanese yen-backed stablecoin. We're going to take a look at Japan's crypto ecosystem and a whole lot more coming up. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world. Well, let's kick off with some of the top stories coming out of Asia today. China has seen yet another fraud case involving the digital yuan. Local media reported that the victim received a call saying she was engaged in a fraud case and then was asked for her bank account information. By the way, never give that out. Using that data, the fraudsters set up an eCNY wallet in her name, filled it with over 300,000 yuan, that's almost 50,000 US dollars, from her bank account, and then transferred it into their own digital wallet. Now, police have since detained one person in the eastern province of Shandong on suspicion of facilitating money laundering through the eCNY for an overseas fraud ring. Over in the Philippines, while the number of Axie Infinity players continue to grow, pay is stagnating. According to a report from Navic, a gaming advisory firm, that growth rate has now declined for a third consecutive month, and earnings are falling. Now, 55% of all Axie players are based in the country. But while one high-ranking player told Forecast News he was able to earn 20,000 US dollars a month from the game back in July, the earnings of a typical player have now fallen below the minimum daily wage level in the Philippines of just $7 US a day. Puts into question the sustainability of this model. And you can find more on those stories at forecast.news. Over in Japan, Circle Ventures, the venture capital arm of the issuer of the world's second biggest stablecoin, has invested in a Series A funding round for JPYC, the issuer of a Japanese yen-backed stablecoin. Now, it comes at a busy time for Circle, which is also establishing a regional hub in Singapore. Forecast News' Lachlan Keller reports on what such an investment could mean for Japan's crypto ecosystem.
Circle Ventures contributed to the 500 million yen, or almost 4.5 million US dollar Series A funding round, which JPYC says it intends to use to increase its position as a stablecoin issuer by improving operational and developmental capabilities. a stablecoin has its value pegged to an underlying asset, with the two current leading stablecoins in the world, USDT and USDC, both pegged to the US dollar. The pair share a total market cap of over $100 billion between them. And while the JPYC has not reached a market cap anywhere close to that, one expert told Forecast News having a stablecoin based in yen is a great advantage for Asian investors.
We're looking at Bitcoin as being a gold equivalent. But you're kind of then moving into this sphere where you're saying, okay, cryptos then could almost be a bond equivalent. So if you're going to have, bond equivalent, then having them denominated in different currencies, people can hedge out their currency risk. And I think for a lot of Asian investors, that may be something that they would look to do. So running one in a yen denominated one just gives you an option of taking out the currency risk.
For Forecast News, I'm Lachlan Keller.
Meanwhile, even if you don't have kids, you probably know this song. Baby Shark is the most viewed YouTube video of all time, but could its creator repeat that feat in the NFT world? Smart Study, maker of the infuriatingly catchy children's song, has joined hands with the NFT platform Maker's Place to try just that. Forecast News' Danny Park has more.
These animated sharks have garnered over 43 billion views on YouTube, gaining a massive worldwide following since the song's first release in 2015. And now, in partnership with Maker's Place, the South Korean educational entertainment company Smart Study is to release its first NFT series of the Pink Fong Baby Shark characters. Baby Shark Collection Number 1 is due to go on sale from December 2nd. Smart Study says it is seeking ways to broaden the fan experience within the digital space, and the NFT drop is already being teased with a countdown clock on Maker's Place. The series will include hologram-themed artworks combining the Baby Shark characters with soundtracks decked with new electronic sounds. For Forecast News, I'm Danny Park.
And that's the daily forecast from our vantage point right here in Asia. For more, visit forecast.news. I'm Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Until the next time.
The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager.
All right, let's have a live look at Bitcoin. The Coindesk Bitcoin price XVX index is trading at $60,875. Bitcoin down almost 7% over the past 24 hours. The Coindesk Ether price ETX index is at 4,318. ETH is also down over 8%. And the new DFX, Coindesk's DeFi index, is at 560 points, down over 11% over the past 24 hours. And joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is Greg Magadini, CEO of Genesis Volatility, a crypto options analytics platform. Welcome, Greg. So Bitcoin falling lower at the end of this short-term range that we're seeing. What do you see as Bitcoin's trajectory?
Yeah, so great question. Something interesting we've been seeing in the options market right now is that options are stubbornly expensive compared to realized volatility. So typically the relationship is between implied volatility and realized volatility. And the market was pricing in a lot of explosive up moves on the most recent rally. We finally got some sort of realized volatility materializing on this down move. But overall, I think the markets are still safe. We're still above key levels such as 60,000 in the Bitcoin space and 4,000 in the Ethereum space. And as long as crypto can hold these levels, I think volatility drops back down and options start to deflate and lose value to that.
Oh, Lawrence, you're on.
When we're looking at the options market, we're seeing a lot more activity in the put side of things. We're seeing far more put contracts being executed. Is that basically players selling those puts because of the high volatility and trying to basically take on a position that they feel won't go in the money and just collecting that premium, as opposed to them having an actual buying those puts and expecting the price to go down?
That's a great question. I really like this question. So what we've seen in the market so far, especially when we're decomposing non-block trade volume, we've seen sort of these far out of the money puts being sold by the retail public. and sort of closer to the money puts being bought. So think of it in terms of Bitcoin, anything between 60 and 50,000 has sort of been bought by the retail public, and anything below 40,000 has been sold.
Sorry, can you? Okay, yeah. So I just returning just to the general market. So we've seen Bitcoin just kind of go down recently, like over basically the last day, and some people are attributing that to China's latest crackdown. I'm just wondering if you would agree with that assessment, or if you think there's another cause that's just causing this short-term decline in price.
Yeah, to me, it's still within the realms of normal price movement, especially looking at how the option market was pricing everything. So the option market has been priced up here for the past, call it 2 to 3 weeks, and the actual movement of the market has been down here. So within sort of the normal standard deviations of the market, I still think this is kind of just a normal fluctuation, people getting liquidated maybe because of positioning, but I don't think anything has fundamentally changed at these levels. I think until we start to get below 60,000 and start holding below 60,000, I think that's kind of more of a fundamental change. But right now, I would say it's still within the realm of normal fluctuation.
So before you were describing a bear spread, are you seeing any bull spreads being placed right now as well on the upper side of things with calls? Do you think that we're seeing some sells of very far out of the money calls to finance the lower strikes? Seeing more activity.
Yeah.
In that
so
kind of a trade.
typically, absolutely. So what we've been seeing in both the retail space and the block trading space is that call spreads are one of the most popular trading structures. And so block traders have been using Paradigm to block trade between kind of 70,000 all the way to 90,000, sort of those call spreads. And then in the retail public, you have the retail buying $100,000 and $80,000 calls and selling the 120s, 140s, 160s. So the retail is really comfortable selling that far out of the money call structure and buying sort of the 80 to 100,000, whereas sort of the more professional trading audience is trading closer to the money, call it 70,000 to 90,000.
All right. Greg, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your insights in the markets. That was Genesis Volatility CEO Greg Magadini. Coming up, BitGo tops $64 billion in assets under custody, and checking in with Coindesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day.
When we say we want to reimagine money, it turns out we're going to the heart of the matter. Imagination has always been a key part of what money is. Imagination in the form of cultural creativity is also something that the cryptocurrency community has in spades. And to the outsider, that can be a reason to dismiss it as frivolous, as something built on nothing. To dismiss it for these reasons, though, is to ignore that all money is imagined.
Welcome back. Time to check in with Coindesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who's also the editor of Coindesk's The State of Crypto newsletter. Hello there, Nick. So, an infrastructure bill has finally been signed by President Joe Biden, I hear, and has consequences for the crypto community.
Good morning. Yes, the bipartisan infrastructure bill that we talked about in August and we've been talking about ever since, that contains a crypto tax provision that seeks to broaden the definition of a broker and enact certain tax collection regulations, was finally signed into law yesterday. It was passed by the House of Representatives about a week and half, give or take, ago, after the Senate passed it in the middle of August. And, now it's law. It's going to be implemented. The Treasury Department is going to presumably issue guidance or explain how they intend to define a broker for crypto tax collection purposes. And, the industry is looking to try and modify or push back. We're seeing Senators Ron Wyden and Cynthia Lummis also introduce a bill to try and modify that provision. Remains to be seen how exactly this is implemented, but that's kind of the where we're at now. It's no longer a matter of if, but when.
So Nick, what's next? I know that the crypto lobby has not given up on trying to get this changed.
So we've seen some individuals in the crypto, lobbyist side, the think tank side, threaten litigation if they, see this, or if the definition becomes something that they see as untenable. Whether that actually happens remains to be seen. I think really what we have to do is wait for Treasury and see how exactly they define a broker, because if it is indeed just parties facilitating transactions on behalf of others versus miners and hardware developers, then maybe there's nothing. The industry's worries may be overblown. But if the definition does end up including these parties that can't report these tax details because they just don't have that information, then that's when I think the industry is really going to have to take a look at how they're approaching this.
Nick, I'm going to ask you a personal question, and I can understand if you don't want to answer it, but here goes. I'm going to reveal some personal information. This past, while you were away, you took a train trip across the country to Seattle, I believe. Do you want to talk about what happened and the insight that you got while going on this, what sounds like the trip of a lifetime?
Yeah, I took a train from New York to Seattle. I took 3 trains technically. It was a train to DC, a train to Chicago, and then a train to Seattle. And honestly, if you've never done that, I highly recommend it. It was a excellent time. It was really very peaceful. You're basically, you don't have a lot to do. There's not a lot of internet connection out there. So for basically 3 nights, you're just kind of looking at the stars and the landscape outside your window as you pass by. But it was very peaceful. Amtrak, I'm a huge Amtrak fan, and personally, and anyone who's seen my Twitter probably has seen me tweet about Amtrak frequently. It really was a great time. I cannot praise it enough. It was a great trip. Had a lot of fun.
Sounds awesome.
You learned about infrastructure that way.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of infrastructure.
The infrastructure side. Well, the infrastructure side is Amtrak needs its own tracks. There was like one segment, frequently, but there was one segment where we were stopped outside of Elkhart, Indiana for like an hour and a half because the railroads are owned by the freight trains, and they basically take priority on a lot of these trips. So people complain about Amtrak not being on time. It's because they don't own the rails that they're operating on outside of the Northeast Corridor. And you can really see that on the long distance trains because that's where all the freight trains are.
Wow. Okay. Well, sounds like an amazing trip, Nick. Good to have you back, no less. That was Coindesk managing editor and train enthusiast, Nick Day. All right. Let's take a look at our spotlight guest.
The Coindesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
BitGo seeing its assets under custody swell to over $64 billion, the crypto custody provider being acquired by Galaxy Digital, owing the surge to growing institutional interest in the space and the need for institutional-grade safekeeping to match. Joining us now is BitGo CEO Mike Belshi. Good morning, Mike. Good to have you on the show. So talking about this institutional investment surge, are institutions really getting into crypto? There are other folks such as Anthony Scaramucci of Skybridge Capital saying that about 10% of institutions may be in it, but most are sitting out this round. Is it still too early?
Well, good morning. Let's see. It's an ongoing effort, and for those of us that have been building in the space, we continue to build. We've been doing this now, I guess, 8 years in total, but really on the institutional focus over the last 5 years. And I think as we've built out, products and safety and insurance, it's been able to bring in more and more folks into the space. Our goal is to make sure that digital assets are ubiquitously available to everyone. And that means the ability to store with institutions as well as to be able to store and hold and manage individually. So institutional adoption continues to grow exactly as we would expect it to. But there's not this massive wall of institutional money that used to be talked about a few years ago. Instead, it's just a steady stream upward.
What percentage or proportion of institutions do you think have made the jump into the investing in crypto?
Well, the interesting part there is that the leaders of those institutions have all placed their crypto bets already. I'd say it's like 80% actually have individual bets. Now, the second question is, can they deploy funds as part of their business or their fund? So a common conversation just a few years ago was, this is all sounding pretty good. I don't think I'm really ready to put it into my business yet where I'm a fiduciary, but let me introduce you to my family office, and the investment happens there. So today, we're continuing to make strides on all the institutional side. This includes, leveraged investors as well as, long holding investors. But obviously, there's more work to be done.
So, Mike, what is the breakdown of the institutions that have that you're the custodian for? How do they look like? What institutions, and percentage-wise, what types of institutions roughly are using your services?
Let's see. For us, we do hit heavy on the crypto native companies, of course. That is where you see the most adoption. Those are companies that have already kind of taken the plunge towards everything digital asset related. Then other places we're seeing is family offices, and then now endowments. And I think we'll soon see pensions. The interesting thing here is that you've got long-term wealth preservation managers that are trying to figure out how they're going to deal with a world where bonds basically have no yield, and the currency, of course, is not a good place to store value. So they've been moving into crypto pretty quickly. On the trading and leverage side, you've got hedge funds that are participating. I'd say these are more in the early stage, but they are growing. And then lastly, we hear a little bit of noise about corporates. Those that have large treasuries may be interested in preserving those treasuries. And frankly, you do need a pretty strong inflationary hedge at this point. But that's still growing as well.
Obviously you probably don't want to break it down too much, but what percentage would you say is crypto native versus traditional finance?
Oh, I would say it's somewhere between 50% and 2/3.
Okay, so it's still very crypto native.
Early days, absolutely.
Right now. Okay,
that's right.
And I suppose another question I had was, you recently had your COO also become the president of this trust, Cassandra Lechner, the BitGo Trust Companies. At what point do you have so many assets under custody that having a president to look after these assets in trust is necessary?
Well, look, we're constantly building the trust to a higher standard. I think our clients are pretty excited, actually, about the changes that we've made. The trust company personnel has grown tremendously over the last year in particular. And this is reflective of, how do you secure large amounts of digital asset? Now, all of this is built on the architecture, which removes any single point of failure, of course. So involved with every transaction that goes through BitGo is actually two completely independent companies. One is BitGo Inc., which is providing a technology and policy management component. The other one is the BitGo Trust Company, which is holding keys in cold storage. Our clients like this very much. They understand it. A number of competitors have all of their wallets, all of their assets in hot wallets, and we think that's a dangerous place to be for the size of asset that we're protecting these days. So expanding the trust company is natural. Cassie is a fantastic leader. She comes out of a long history. She's formerly a regular at DFS and an attorney as well. So she's building up a great team, meeting the demands of clients and the standards you expect with a first-class trust company.
Yeah, well, congratulations on this growth. Just to give folks out there some context, in December of last year, BitGo reported assets under custody of about $16 billion. Now they're at $64 billion. But then again, we have Coinbase, who has also reported assets on its platform of over $223 billion. So the industry is growing. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your insights. That was BitGo CEO Mike Velshi. All right, time now to check in with Crypto Twitter with our tweet of the day. Some folks are applauding those Bitcoin dip opportunities, such as Philippe Bekhazi, the founder CEO of XBTO Group and Stablehouse, tweeting, "We are requesting more China banning. Bitcoin, please. Pace of banning not adequate." All right, that's it for First Mover. Thank you, Emily Parker and Lawrence Lewitton. I'm your host, Christine Lee. I'll be back live at 3 p.m. with All About Bitcoin. Coming up at noon are the folks from The Hash. You're watching Coindesk TV.